Welcome to the Cowboy Up Podcast, where talk is all about the West. This episode is brought to you by White Stallion Ranch and produced by Cowboy Spirit USA. Yoga and horses? Does it mix? You betcha. And yoga and equine master Cathy Woods is here to tell you how it all works and why you just might want to incorporate yoga in your riding. So let's get to the ranch where Russell, Alan, and Cathy await your presence.
So, Alan, I'm away again, obviously, and I have to brag a little bit really quickly. I'm sitting in my room, looking out through the picture windows, through the tall pines at Flathead Lake here, just outside Kalispell, Montana, at Averill's Flathead Lake Lodge, one of the premier dude ranches and one of the premier vacation spots in the world. I've been here once before, and I'm just reminded what a spectacular, unique location they have, and then they take their brand of dude ranching to a level that most of us aspire to. So I'm really lucky I get to be here and then doing a wrangler training, because that's one of the jobs I have with the Dude Ranch Foundation. And then I head home. So travel's over after today. How's everything there?
Well, it's not even really hot yet. It's still late spring and beautiful weather here. So happy to be here.
Yeah, everybody's asking me because, everybody up here thinks that we're 120 degrees and dying of heat stroke every day. And I said, it's been spring. It's been super. So anyway, we've got, last week we had Lynn Thomas and talking about horses and their role in helping and healing people. And today we have Cathy Woods. It's a great theme we've got going. And Cathy is a pioneer in equestrian wellness. She's been leading yoga programs for horse lovers and non-equestrians. She's been doing that for 32 years. Creator of Body, Mind, Equine, a program that teaches participants to deepen their relationship and connection with themselves, their horses, and the world around them. Longtime yoga teacher, horsewoman, avid backcountry trail rider. Cathy leads retreats, clinics internationally at ranches, expos, equine centers. Also has an online audio and video courses. The author of Yoga for Riders. She's written for and been featured in publications, long list, Horse Illustrated, Equus, Horse and Rider, Cowgirl Magazine, Streamhouse TV, Yoga Digest, Forbes.com, and that's not all of them. She's based in the Great Smoky Mountains of North Carolina. And the thing we're most excited about, next January, she's going to be at White Stallion for an all-inclusive retreat. And this will be a first time with us, but she's been at some other top drawer dude ranches. So we're just proud to be in that company. And welcome, Cathy.
Well, thank you, Russell and Alan. I'm really happy to be here with you guys today, and thanks for having me as a guest. I look forward to our conversation.
Well, we're happy to have you on, and I was sitting here trying to envision the Smoky Mountains today. How's life there right now?
Life is good. It is gorgeous. Our nights have been in the 50s, our days in the 70s, so doors and windows wide open. So it's beautiful late spring here, and
do you have a horse
really lovely.
Do you have a horse property there? Are you in the middle of horses?
I am in the middle of nowhere, and so we're pretty remote. My husband and I have 30 acres here, and we do have a couple of horses that we've had for quite some time. They've been part of our family, and we also have some neighbors who have a cheese farm, a dairy farm that graze some Jersey cows over here. So, yeah, it's very farm-like, and we're really nestled into a little lush hollow here in the Great Smoky Mountains. So it's a beautiful place to call home. I'm always grateful.
How did you ever integrate yoga and horses? Was that your design, or did you just fall into it, or what's the background on that?
Yeah, well, I'm a long-time yoga teacher, as you mentioned. So I've been teaching about 32 years, and I always say it's a really good job to have because it never feels like a job. I'm teaching yoga, authentic yoga, the whole of yoga really is a passion of mine to share that with people and showing them how it works in their daily lives more so than just a practice of fitness or exercise. And then I've been a long time horse owner, horsewoman, avid backcountry trail rider, and really I was finding a lot of what I was doing in my yoga practice, I was also doing in my horsemanship. So part of my work is teaching about the parallels of yoga and horsemanship. And like a couple of examples of those might be, I would be on my yoga mat and I would feel like I wasn't symmetrical in one of the balance poses and I would self-correct. I would be in the saddle on a trail ride and I would feel like my weight wasn't symmetrical in the stirrups or on my sitting bones, so I would self-correct. I was noticing on the yoga mat when I would get tense or in a big twisted, contorted, challenging pose, I would shallow my breathing or hold my breath. And I was noticing I'd be on a trail ride and I'd come up to a slippery creek crossing and get a little nervous, and I'd notice I'd start holding my breath. So I reminded myself to breathe deeply, just like I would on a yoga mat. And those are just a couple of the parallels, but so much of what we actually do on the mat in true yoga is really the same stuff we're doing in horsemanship, of being body aware, breathing aware, energy aware, being present and mindful. So it pairs nicely together.
Can I ask what what I know about yoga wouldn't fill a thimble, and it's one of those things that there's a long list of these things that I think really I'd love to know more about, and it seems like I end up too busy to expand my world. Yoga is more than just poses and that time on the mat. Is that a fair statement? Is there an approach to life aspect to yoga?
Absolutely, and I'm so glad you brought that up. What I call the westernized version of yoga is about the postures, the athletics, cute, trendy yoga clothes, and that's kind of what we see in the media. But I was introduced to yoga at a very, very young age and was fortunate to study with a yogi, a guru from India for many years, who I still study with, and he's 90 years old now. So I was really fortunate at an early age to learn about the true roots of yoga, and this was really before yoga became on trend as it is now. And yoga, not to get too into the philosophy, but it's called an 8-limbed path. So there are 8 aspects to yoga practice, and yoga postures are only one of those aspects. So there's 7 other aspects of yoga, different meditative states, breathing, breath work for yogis. It's a whole philosophy, and to sum it up in one word, I call yoga an awareness practice, right? It's an opportunity for us to become more aware of ourselves, body, mind, spirit, energy, on the yoga mat by spending this integrated time with ourselves. And then the idea is really to carry that heightened and integrated awareness with us off the mat and into our daily lives and also into our horsemanship. So it's really a practice that helps us to live well, to enrich living on so many levels, and teaches us to be in the present moment, and lots of tools that we can use off the mat too anytime we're feeling stress or anxiety or need to notch our energy up or down. So there's so much to it. So I'm really glad you asked that question. Thank you.
Well, would you say that yoga is more a way of life than it is a therapy? Is that what is coming through what you're saying?
Well, I think different people practice things to the level of their comfortability and where things fit in their lives. So for some people, yoga is going to a class once a week, and that's enough for them. And other people decide to dive a little deeper into it and maybe go on a retreat and maybe learn a little bit more about the philosophy of yoga or the 8 limbs of yoga. For me, it is very much a lifestyle. So I think different people take it to whatever level works for them in their lives. So my goal is to make yoga and horsemanship accessible to everyone, regardless of what that looks like for you. So some people are just comfortable doing the yoga postures. They have no interest in the meditative aspect or the breath work aspect. So I think, it can be good at any level. It just depends on what a person's interest level is and where they want to take it. So
I always, I'm a fan, not an expert of history, and if you can, what's sort of the basic outline of the history of yoga? Where did it come from? When?
India, many years ago, I would say over 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, are some of the first written accounts of yoga, and these are in the form of something called the Yoga Sutras. So we can really go in, a deep dive into yogic philosophy, but it is a very, very old, very ancient practice that, a lot of people believe was really divinely inspired, because there's a lot of texts and yogic philosophy that had been written down. Some people even call it a yogic science, because it affects our nervous system, our heart rate, our respiration. Again, all that stuff pairs really nicely with our time with equines. It was really a science, philosophy, even before we had ways to measure respiration and heart rate and things of that nature. So it really is a very old practice that has its roots in India. But the nice thing about yoga is, it doesn't matter where you live or what your spiritual background is or your belief system is. The nice thing is you can have anyone in the same room practicing yoga at the same time, because really, again, it is an awareness practice, and it just can help enhance and deepen whatever your personal practice or belief system is.
And it's very individual. It's not classes. I mean, you can learn it through classes, but the experience is very individual. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm a believer both in life and in horsemanship and in yoga. There's deliberate learning, where we learn something from a class or from a book, and then there's self-learning, of self-exploration, and I think yoga is a practice of both. It's certainly very beneficial for people to learn about the yoga postures and body alignment and basic yogic breathing and things of that nature through taking a class or working with an instructor, but a lot of it does become an internal practice where we begin to embody it more and, contemplate and actually start self-adjusting on the mat, or, being able to see how we can use it in our daily lives.
So I'm a horse, for just a second. I'm a horse, and a rider gets on me that's an experienced yogi, is that the correct term?
Sure.
What will be different when this rider's on me? How will that be different than a rider that wasn't a yogi?
Yeah. Well, again, I keep coming back to the word awareness. I like to always say I may not be the most technically trained rider on the trail, but I can always promise people I'm the most aware rider. And again, what are we aware of? This is kind of how my Body, Mind, Equine program came about. We're aware of everything. Because you become more aware on the mat of your breathing, your emotions, your energy, how your mind works. These are all things that help us when we're on our horse. So, for example, on a physical level, if we have tightness and tension and restrictions in our physical body, your horse is going to actually move differently and be more stiff and more jerky and more trippy. So I would notice if I was on a trail ride and I was, riding for 2-3 hours and starting to get upper body tension, I would, do some stretches and movements to kind of release that tension, or feeling tightness in my hips. I might get off my horse and do a couple hip stretches, and surely when I'd get back on my horse, he or she would be moving better. We'd be moving more in sync. So that's just the physical part, that our tensions actually can restrict our horse's movements. So the yogi body hopefully is a little less restricted, which helps the horse feel more balanced. And things like breathing myself through challenges, which helps breathe my horse through challenges. So, I think just that awareness of, are my feet symmetrical in the stirrup? Am I sitting twisted? Is my shoulders up around my ears? So that body awareness also translates to, being a better rider. And just being aware of your emotions and how breath and emotions link up. So, for example, if I'm riding and I become fearful or anxious or nervous, I would typically shallow my breath or maybe hold my breath. And we all do that, not just in horsemanship, but in life. When we start to feel tension, it affects our breathing. And horses certainly can feel a fly on their back, so they certainly know if we are up there breathing or holding our breath. And so we can, use the breath work to help, keep us relaxed and centered and aware. So there's so many different ways it pairs really nicely.
Is it safe to say that horses probably are more aware of what we're feeling and transmitting than we're aware that we are transmitting to them?
I think so. I'm not a horse scientist or expert in that field, but in my many years of doing this work, I definitely see that the horses are very, very aware. Their whole life out in the wild is based on awareness and intuition and vibration and, kind of picking up on the mentality or the energy, rather, of the herd or the environment. So I think so. I say in my book, Yoga for Riders, you can't lie to a horse or to a highly attuned human, because horses are reading the energy behind the words. So if we go out there and we're trying to be task-oriented and ego-oriented and trying to fake confidence, I believe that the horses can clearly sense that. I always say they detect the energy behind the words. So I think they are very, very in tune beings, and we do transmit. And really how my program came about is I would go down to my own barn, and I would notice if it was a day that I was stressed, rushed, scattered, frustrated about something, my interactions with my horses, my riding, my loading them in and out of the trailer, all of that would be a little different. It would have a little vibration of, tension to it, versus days that I would take a few minutes before I went down to the barn, did a little bit of breath work, got myself centered, or even did that at the barn with my horse. My experience with my horse those days would be more fruitful. So I was noticing, what energy am I bringing to my horsemanship? Am I bringing centered, grounded energy? Am I bringing nervous, scattered energy? Am I bringing sleepy, tired energy? And, of course, the horses mirror that back to us. So they're great, what I call creature teachers, can teach us a great deal about ourselves and showing up in an authentic form.
I like your term, creature teacher.
Thank you.
Well, on that, I think we better take a quick break.
Sure.
Good.
Well, thank you, Alan and Russell. Great program. Hey, my name is Stan Houston, and with Lynn's permission, I have the right to do a little self-promotion, so please bear with me. Russell and Alan, they had never done this before. As Russell will tell you, he said, Stan nagged me for about 5 years, and I finally just kind of gave in to see what would happen. Well, what has happened is they're on their 4th season now. They enjoy it. They're very good at it. Who would have known that they had never done anything like this before? But now it does a lot of things for their life, their business, their relationships, their friendships. Now they have friends and listeners from all over the world who appreciate the stories, a touch of wisdom, and obviously a touch of wit from time to time. And they attract some really great guests. Well, that kind of life could also be yours. So may I suggest that some of the things you'll need to do to make sure that a robot doesn't replace you, that you actually have a persona and a presence that is unique and your story is told. Hey, would you like to think about being a podcaster? Just think about it. Go to my little web stage. It's called witradio.net, witradio.net. And then you'll see some pictures of me and see some some videos which will get you started on how perhaps you might be on the radio. Let's try and do that in the rest of 23. Now, back to the program.
So, Cathy, I mean, we've been around it, but maybe we should define body, mind, equine, and yoga, which is your program. You created it, I believe. And
I did, yeah.
Tell us maybe just color in a few of the details, and then we want to know more about several of the other things you have going.
Absolutely. So, yeah, Yoga for Riders is my actual book, and that was published in 2020 by Horse and Rider Books. They're one of the oldest and leading publishers of equestrian reads. They've been around for 30-plus years, so I was honored to be published by them. And my book is a very, very comprehensive book. People look at the cover and see Yoga for Riders, but I'd like to mention just a few of what the chapters are about, and that also answers your question about kind of what Body, Mind, Equine is about. So Body, Mind, Equine is a trademarked program that I created about 15 years ago that uses the whole of yoga, not just the postures, but principles and postures to improve horsemanship from ground to saddle, helps us to become more mindful equestrians, and also focuses on equestrian wellness. So my whole book, Yoga for Riders, is in essence my Body, Mind, Equine program. So just to give you an idea what some of the chapters are like, and also what some of the components of Body, Mind, Equine are. For one, chapter 1 is Yoga, Horsemanship, Connection. What is true yoga? Practical parallels of yoga and horsemanship. What makes a good rider? Energy awareness, connection, yoga postures for riders on the mat, yoga postures for riders on horseback, the yoga of breath, meditation, the power of intentions, creating a personal yoga practice, and embodying the practice. So that's pretty much the chapters of my book, and those are kind of the segments of my Body, Mind, Equine program as well, or different things that we tap into through that program.
Well, when somebody reads your book, and I'm assuming will be easy and good to read and very instructive, and you're back on your horse and something happens, the horse jumps or an event happens, do you find yourself reflecting back, well, what did the book say about this, or does it all just go in and become part of you? How's the interaction with that?
Yeah, well, I like to be clear that I'm not an equine trainer. I'm not a horse trainer. I'm not a riding instructor. So I'm not giving people instructions on how to do a side pass or rollbacks or any, dressage moves or anything like that. So I'm not coming from that perspective. There are people way more qualified than me to do that. I think my book really gives people, overall awareness tools. And again, how to use intentions, how to start integrating this practice from the mat to our groundwork with horses, to our mounted work. And the stretches that I do, I want to be clear on this too, do help improve balance. So sure, if your horse jumps sideways and you have a better and more balanced seat and your weight is symmetrical and you're aware, and you're watching the body language, like, gee, my horse might be getting a little tense or he might be getting a little fearful. Sometimes through that awareness, you can offset unfavorable situations by simply being aware and correcting or redirecting the energy. But I also want to talk about the stretches that I teach on the yoga mat for riders, and the mounted stretches I do are not really designed to be acrobatics. They're really more to improve our awareness of our bodies, our symmetry, but are we moving from center? Are we moving with the breath? Sometimes we think we're symmetrical, but we're not. So yeah, again, these are all tools that, would definitely help with riding and even with groundwork. I mean, some of the exercises that I do at my clinics and retreats are on the ground, just illustrating energy, like how a horse might move differently for two different people, same horse, and you have two different people leading the horse, and the horse clearly feels more confident with one, and you can, assess that in their body language. And then we also do things like that riding, how, the horses just respond to our different energy individually.
So to Alan's point, though, I'm inferring that your program and just applying yoga to life is going to, and I think this is kind of a bullseye with the people that come to dude ranches, ours included, obviously, that, whether they want to learn rollbacks and dressage, and maybe they do that at home or something, but, dude ranches are really about recreational trail riding and cattle work. And the yoga approach is going to help them in a way that sort of Alan, I think, was asking, is the way I heard it, is that it just becomes part of you. And you've described where it's going to, the horse spooks and jumps sideways 3 feet. You're not going to process that and solve your problem. You're either going to get through it or be on the ground. And it seems like the yoga approach is going to spill over onto that ride and help you get through some of those things, potentially.
Absolutely, yeah. And, my background is an avid backcountry trail rider. When I say backcountry, I mean way backcountry, 2, 3, 4 day pack trips, trail clearing with Backcountry Horseman Association and just, and I'm a self-taught rider, so I have not been one to take lessons, but I've been riding my whole life, and really, I think the yoga has helped me with that. So I want to give you a little story where this actually applied. I was riding with a friend. We were way out in the backcountry in the Great Smoky Mountains here where I live, and a stick got caught under her horse's back girth, and her horse went to bucking. And she said, I knew I was going to come off this horse. There was no way I was going to ride this out. And I'm watching this, and it looked like a train wreck about to happen. And this is my friend Nancy, and she was at the time probably in her mid to late 60s. So she was a mature rider, had a lot of experience, but she said all this went on in a split second. She said, I knew I was going to come off my horse, and she said, if I'm going to come off, I'm going to do it yoga style. And she said, I took a huge deep breath, relaxed my body, and just honed into the right timing of when to roll off my horse. And she did. She dismounted, and she landed on rocks and sticks. And I thought, oh, my goodness, Nancy's going to be, all busted up, and I'm going to be calling an ambulance. And she kind of got up and shook it off, and she attributed that, and she didn't get hurt, a few little bumps and bruises, but nothing compared to what that could have been. And she attributed that way that she dismounted to yoga. She said, she had honed her skills so much on the mat about awareness and how to relax her body that when she went off in a relaxed way. You might compare it to like an inebriated person that falls down, right? They might not get hurt, but somebody else might because you have a relaxed body. So she was able to use that in an unfavorable situation. And there are many more situations that are favorable. Like I said earlier, for example, we have lots of creeks here, and they're super slippery creeks. And, we'll be approaching one of those creeks, and I always feel my nerves kind of increasing a little bit, and I'll remind myself, use some yogic breathing, relax my body, don't clench with my legs, don't clench with my hips, don't override, just let the horse, kind of work as a team, and let's pick our way through this. And just, that awareness and being able to relax when we feel tense. So those are just a few accounts of, how I've seen it work on the trail.
Do you have any exercises or things that you teach to prepare your body, to make your body more relaxed and more ready for something like you just described, for being able to handle a fall or something like that?
Right. I would say, just practicing yoga on the mat. Of course, I have a series of postures in my books and on my online courses, but even taking yoga that is not geared to equestrians is going to help. So practicing on the mat is paramount, because then we start to develop more flexible bodies, more awareness, and the flexible body, the relaxed body doesn't sustain injury usually as much if it does take a fall. The other nice thing about practicing yoga regularly, maybe before and after a ride, is also riders become less stiff and less sore because their bodies are working in a more optimal way. So I would say, practicing on the mat, just getting your body flexible, strong, and balanced. And that's what the yoga postures do, is they're not just for flexibility like many people think. They improve flexibility, balance, and strength, and all those things work synergistically. And, also it's not just for those who own horses, it's not just the riding, you're doing chores around the barn, you're lifting hay bales, you're pushing wheelbarrows, you're, lifting water buckets. So just keeping the body strong and healthy for just, daily horse chores is important, and to be aware that you're picking up that hay bale symmetrical and you're not going to tweak your back or something. So it comes in handy in so many other aspects too.
So Cathy, we've talked a lot about this overlap between riding and yoga, and even a great example of where it really helped in a spontaneous dismount situation. But
I like how you phrase that, Russell.
Yeah, spontaneous dismount. Yeah, it's not something we're new to. So when people sign up for your program at White Stallion in January, what are some specifics that they should be looking toward?
Yeah, so that'll be a really nice 3-night women's retreat, and I'm kind of doing a combo that I like to do. We're calling it Embrace Your Cowgirl Spirit through Body, Mind, Equine, because I love the cowgirl spirit and what that means, and also how we can use that in our daily lives. Like, we don't have to work on a ranch or be a rodeo rider to embrace that cowgirl spirit of resourcefulness, of authenticity. So I like to bring that element into the Body, Mind, Equine retreat. So as women, we are there hopefully empowering each other and exploring our cowgirl spirit and how we can use that in our daily lives. But how the retreat looks is, each morning starts with meditation, with a class on the yoga mat of good stretches for riders. And then I like to interweave some workshop topics in there, such as the parallels of yoga and horsemanship, breath work for riders, energy awareness. So there's that component interwoven. And then we spend time in the arena with equines doing unmounted and mounted exercises to illustrate breathing with horses, how our energy affects the horses, and then, mindful riding. I call it mounted meditation in motion. So we'll be doing some of that in the arena. I do teach some basic yoga moves that you can do on your horse to, again, help with balance and symmetry. And then the afternoons are spent, on a lovely trail ride, which I'm so excited to ride out there in Tucson. I think that'll just be beautiful. I've been to the area before, but really looking forward to riding. So it becomes kind of a, women's empowerment retreat, as well as learning these body, mind, equine elements. But I think the big takeaway is people go home from these retreats, and I've been doing them for years, and it's such a rich experience for the participants and for me, that they go home with new yoga skills, new horse skills, and new life enrichment tips. And then I feel like I've done my job, when people can take some of this home and not just say, oh yeah, that was a fun weekend away, but actually enrich their lives. In fact, I just got back from leading a yearly program that I do in Colorado, and 2 of the women on their evaluation forms and also in our sharing circle at the end said the program literally was life-changing for them. And I'm not giving them the life change. I'm just creating the safe container for that personal growth and help facilitate that. So they're really rich, deep dive experiences. And they're different for everybody. I mean, some women come there and say, yeah, that was just a fun girlfriend's getaway. And then others, have these really moving experiences. And some think, hey, I'm just coming there to do a little yoga and ride some horses. And they end up finding that, they've gone a lot deeper than that, and sometimes different things come up for them, different awarenesses. So it's
Cathy, because we've just got this time slipping away on us, and do you have, you've got quite a few, years of these retreats behind you, and you just had one or two. Do you have a story in our sort of wind up here that would be a specific example of where a retreat had an impact, and maybe specifics, or do they just go home and you don't always know?
Sometimes that, but a lot of times I do know. We do a lot of sharing at the end of the programs, and there's just so many different things that people get out of the program, as I mentioned, and some of them are just like, wow, at the end of this, I realized how I've been so badly neglecting my body, and I really need to get back to the roots of taking care of myself. So sometimes these are, wellness kind of awarenesses that come up. Other times people say, wow, I just didn't realize I was riding so tense or, so stiff. So it's helped my riding, or it's helped me connect with my horse in a deeper way. Many snippets and stories that we probably don't have time to go into, but that's the gist of it. And, again, I'm really looking forward to leading that there. In fact, Russell, you mentioned you're out at Flathead Lake Lodge, and I actually did lead this program out there probably 4 or 5 years ago at Flathead Lake Lodge. That was a wonderful experience.
So did you guys do yoga on the top of that hill with the platform and the mat and the indescribable view of the lake?
We had a view of the lake. I don't think there was a deck out there at the time, but we were in a beautiful grassy area right in front of the lake, and that was just
well, there's a lot of grass and a lot of lake.
Yep.
And then now Doug Averill, one of the owners, drove me around and showed me this yoga platform, which was sort of coincidental. But and you've taken them. I assume the Colorado might have been Sea Lazy U, and you've got kind of an all-star lineup of dude ranches, and so if obviously if people want to join you at White Stallion in January, that's going to be on our website. They can go and tell where can people go to learn about, maybe they can't make January and they want to go to one of your other retreats. Where can they go learn about that?
They can learn about my schedule and my program on my website, which is CathyWoodsYoga.com, and that's Cathy with a C, Woods with an S, CathyWoodsYoga.com. Also on Instagram and Facebook, Cathy Woods Yoga, and I try to, keep my schedule up to date on there. Colorado I do yearly. This year I'm doing an Iceland retreat. I'm a lot of times doing presentations at different expos. I'm going to be out at the Warwick Schiller Journey On Summit in San Antonio this year. So all that's on my website. And my programs really range from, one-day programs to several-day retreats. My favorites are like what I'll be doing at White Stallion, which is a several-day program where the program really can build on itself. So it's all on my website. In addition to my book, you can order my book on the site. I have an online course, Yoga for Riders, through WeHorse, and then I have an audio series for equestrians produced through Horse Class. So all of that content is on my website. And I always encourage people to follow me on social, because I do try to put inspirational tips and quotes and things to keep us plugged into wellness. And on my YouTube channel, which is Cathy Woods Yoga, I have a lot of free content there, free yoga classes and breathwork sessions and conversations. So that's the best way to learn more.
You stay pretty busy, Cathy, from your schedule and how you tell it is. I'm impressed with how busy you stay.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm as busy as I want to be. I'm really a bit of a hermit too, so I love my quiet life here in the Smokies. So I find it's really important for me to keep my schedule balanced with, travel events, and they're very rich and meaningful. But to be able to come home to such a great place and refill my own cup is really important as well.
Well, we appreciate you sharing a little of your time with us this morning.
Happy
we sure do. And
yes.
CathyWoodsYoga.com, Cathy with a C, Woods plural, CathyWoodsYoga.com, and all that stuff you've got going on can be linked to from there. I'm believing.
Absolutely. There's a schedule page, and included on that schedule page is the event that I'll be doing at White Stallion, and I think that's going to be a really perfect pairing, so I'm excited about it, and I'm hoping we can, make it a yearly thing.
Well, we're looking forward to that, and thank you very, very much.
Thank you all very much for having me as a guest. Take care now.
Thanks, Cathy. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was fun, wasn't it? Hey, again, you learn more here by accident than most places by design, and you also rather enjoy it, don't you? Hey, we hope that you'll remember to support the Cowboy Up podcast. Please go in and if you can give us a nice compliment or a review, we'd be grateful for that. And please make sure that you tell others about the Cowboy Up podcast. And if you're a real fan, perhaps you'd like to reach out to Ms. Lynn and say, hey, how is it possible for me perhaps to be a sponsor, to have my business and my good cause named on the Cowboy Up podcast? Well, I think she'll be more than happy to do that. So the Cowboy Up podcast at gmail.com, the Cowboy Up podcast at gmail.com. And who knows, you might be on the radio, and your program and your good stuff and your good stories will be a part of what we would welcome right here on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. Yoga and horses. Share your experience with us. Reach out through our website at cowboyuppodcast.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you to the talented Stan Houston production team for making this episode possible. Next week, the focus is on Route 66 with photographer Terry Moore. Until we meet again, I'm Lynn Weezy Sneed, reminding you to sit tall and ride safe. Namaste.